What's going on, everybody? Dylan here with Espresso Outlet. Today we are going to be looking at the DF83. So we are going to be taking this apart and showing you exactly how you can adjust the grinder, find your 0 point, and make sure you screw it back on the correct way. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So first we're going to start by removing these bellows. You have to take this collar off. All right, so that just comes straight off. And then now what you do is you just keep twisting. All right, so here we go. So here, this is what the back side of the front plate looks like. You got your threads over here on the side. And then you can take off the upper burr carrier. And then you have these little rubber feet here. So these rubber feet, if I can get it out, are definitely important. Make sure you do not lose these. There's going to be one on top and bottom. The one that's on the top is already attached to this, so you can take that off. I'm actually going to leave this on so I know exactly where my burrs aligned when they first went down. So I always want to keep note of where you had your burr carrier sitting when you take this off. Mine's pretty clean. I clean it pretty regularly. But when you are going to clean this, you take these screws out, you just take it apart, you clean it, and then you make sure you put them back on. My recommendation would be to find exactly where you took them off. So if you take it off this one, and you put it down, make sure you put the burr back. I always like to align it right back where I had it. So I'll probably mark from here to here just to know that this is where I had it. Here is the little disc that comes on. This is actually for making sure that everything is aligned, sits in there. It's pretty easy. When you do take this off, make sure you just unscrew all this, clean everything, and then put it all back together. Like I said, put it right back in the exact same spot and where you had it, just so you keep that pretty much the same alignment. So pretty much the steps that I like to say is just go ahead and put this disc here. I always want to make sure that the ridged part, the part that's lifted, is over here, especially for my grinder, just because this is where I find that all the burrs touch the best. My rubber piece to the top here. Add the second one to the bottom. Make sure this isn't pinched at all, the ring. And then you're going to go ahead and set this on top. Now you're going to want to make sure it's pretty solid so everything is lining up pretty good. So what you do now is you just keep spinning. The one mistake a lot of people may make, especially when putting the grinder cap back on, is when they find their 0 point. So they say, you know, I cleaned my grinder and I was on grind setting 15, and now when I put it back on, clean my grinder, I'm on grind setting like 29 or 30. Why is this? So right now it's getting pretty tight. Some people might just stop it right here. Okay, that's 0. When in reality, if you look, I can still turn this. It's not at 0 yet. So you got to keep going until this top cannot spin anymore. All right, so it's not spinning anymore. And if you notice, when I go to spin this knob, nothing moves. The burrs are completely touching. So then what you do is you just go ahead and release it a little bit. Still not touching. Still not moving. Still not moving. And ever so slight movements can make it to where it's going to start spinning again. So hear that? That's where the burrs are touching now. So I can still hear the burr. So this would be my 0 point. So now, since I found this is my 0 point, it's right where the burrs, so I like to go for my 0 point. As soon as the burrs are touching, that's your exact 0 point. And I like to make the 0 point where as soon as you move this, if you can still hear a little bit of the burrs touching, I go a little bit further until you barely hear nothing. And that's where I will set my 0 point. And I'll also show you another way to note that you have the 0 point correct. So just going to lock this down, It doesn't have to be too tight. You want to make it tight enough to where it's not going to like go out of whack, but now it's pretty tight here. All right, so you know you hit 0 point when you turn your grinder on. So let's say we move it off past 0 and you turn it on. When you get a 0, you should hear chirping. So you heard the chirping right around this little warning sign. I don't like to put the chirping right at the 0 because it's not really the greatest for the birds to touch like that when you are grinding at full speed as so. So I always do it to where I can put it to 0 and be fine and know not to go past 0. So once again, it's also important that when you are grinding and you are changing grind size, let's say you're at 20 and you want to come to 10, make sure you turn your grinder on and make the adjustments while the grinder is on. Like so. This is how you take apart the cap and how you put everything back in. Make sure that you do find the 0 point and then go from 0 point back to your dialed in number here. So that way you know exactly where to go. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.